have Amy Nilsen and Kevin Miller here from the County of Humboldt because they want to give a presentation on Measure O.
So because of the technical difficulties, I'm going to hand out a few PowerPoints for you all to sort of follow along with. And our apologies for that. So,
my apologies.
Well,
It's Ray's fault.
It's always something, right?
it's always something, which is why we bring the trusted paper with us. So, again, my name is Amy Nilsen. I'm the County Administrative Officer for the County of Humboldt. And with me today is Lieutenant Kevin Miller with the Humboldt County Sheriff's Department. So we're here to talk to you about Measure O, which is a renewal measure. It is the half-cent sales tax measure that's going to public safety and essential services. And one of the things about Measure O is that it will maintain locally controlled funding. And that's really important because the state has taken over $368 million from the county over the last 25 years through ERAF shifts, removing Williamson Act, and removing funding for Williamson Act. And so the county needed some additional revenue to replace those funds for public safety and other essential services. So again, Measure O will continue the locally controlled funding, and it cannot be taken from Sacramento. Measure O will maintain rural ambulance services and services for victims of child abuse. Particularly, it will maintain rural ambulance service along Highway 36 and Highway 299, which are all roads that you probably travel and would like to know that an ambulance is coming should you have a car accident. Measure O will maintain fire protection services. Measure O contributes heavily to the volunteer fire companies and to the special district fire companies. They've received over 400 complete sets of personal protective equipment. They've received 11 fire trucks, and there's also planning efforts going into consolidation and expansion of fire districts so we can all be within a fire district and make sure that our homes and our safety are protected. And we're also providing additional mental health services for children, particularly in the eastern part of the county and the southern part of the county. Those are some underserved areas, and so we have been expanding services for children out in those parts of our area. And I think do you want to talk about emergency 911? Emergency response? There you go.
Response, yes. Actually, one more thing I just wanted to add real quick regarding the Measure Z and the fire departments too. It's also allowed especially our volunteer fire departments, the smaller ones that don't have a lot of funding, it's actually allowed them to increase their training and actually be able to come up to a level that meets a national standard now, which benefits every single one of us, especially if you have to call 911 and need them. As far as the Sheriff's Office and 911 response, this has had a huge impact, positive impact for us. What it's done for us is it's allotted 40 positions within the Sheriff's Department. That's deputies, correctional deputies, community service officers. We now have 4 of those, which is huge. We're able to use them to go out there and meet with the public, take reports, and do things along that line, while still leaving a sworn officer out there patrolling the streets and responding to more urgent calls. But it's also a personal touch because we had to really rely heavily on a online reporting system. It was really kind of impersonal. We didn't like that, so with these community service officers, we're able to push out there into the communities and really have face-to-face interaction with folks, which is huge. Other impacts it's had is that it has allowed us to open a station over in the Willow Creek area. Prior to that, we were co-housed with the Highway Patrol over there. But we now have our own station in downtown Willow Creek that is staffed 24 hours a day. That's another improvement also, along with 24-hour services down in the southern Humboldt area. And it has allowed us to reinstitute our resident deputy programs. So we have resident deputies in Oric, Orleans, Bridgeville, and we're working on Shelter Cove. So those are some of the things that Measure Z has helped us with.
So some of the additional things that Measure Z, or now Measure O, It's improved 50 miles of county roadway and provided 20 radar feedback signs. And it has definitely played a very critical role in public safety, particularly for the Sheriff's Department and for the volunteer fire departments. Again, they've received a lot of personal protective equipment. The Eureka Police Department has received officers, and Health and Human Services has the MISS team, and they collaborate with Eureka Police Department to address homelessness in the Eureka area. And so there are funds that can actually place people into housing, and also some drug treatment dollars as well. Measure O has also helped the Ferndale Police Department, but in particular it's helped the District Attorney's Office with 11 additional district attorneys. So the District Attorney's Office prosecutes crime across all of Humboldt County. That includes all of the cities. And just also to mention that the Sheriff's Department also provides mutual aid to all of the local jurisdictions in this area as well. And also with the District Attorney's Office, they've also received funding for the Child Abuse Services team, and so we call that CAST, and CAST helps victims of child abuse and helps their families. So also, Fortuna has really received a school resource officer and a police officer for the drug task force, which has been really great, because I don't know if you see in the news how effective the drug task force has been recently. They are really pulling a lot of illicit drugs out of the market, and so that's a really huge benefit to our community. Arcata has, did you want to?
I was just going to add too, yeah, also Measure O has allowed us to also put a sergeant out of drug task force. So that's another person out there that wasn't there before. And all this adds up to the effectiveness and the stories that you're seeing in the papers of everything that they're doing.
Arcata has received juvenile diversion. They have a juvenile diversion team that are...
She's in there. She's here?
Yep. Yeah.
Oh, she's
in the yes.
Autographs afterwards.
Yeah. So Measure O helps keep kids safe. Again, it provides services, protective and counseling services for victims and witnesses of child abuse. And Measure O will continue to restore those services. So it extends the voter-approved half-cent sales tax. There is no sunset date currently with this measure because we did some polling, and the polling told us that people didn't want to see these services end. They weren't interested in a 5-year sunset. They wanted these services to continue on, and so that's why the county has it until ended by voters, which means it can be ended by voters. I think sometimes people are telling us this is permanent, and actually, no, if for some reason the county has enough funds, the board can put a ballot measure back on to the ballot and end it, or the voters can actually do that themselves if they're tired of paying the half-cent sales tax. So Measure O doesn't apply to prescription medication or groceries that you purchase at the store, and visitors to our region also pay this cost because it's a sales tax, which is great because they do use our services. They do use our police, our sheriff services, or the ambulance services. So Measure O will continue its fiscal accountability. We have the Citizens Advisory Committee, and they review and approve the Measure O applications, and they make recommendations to the Board of Supervisors. Those are all public meetings that anybody can attend and give their input on. And then those recommendations go to the Board of Supervisors, which is again another public meeting where folks can go and give their input and let the board know how they like to see those funds spent. The county is also audited every year by law by an external auditor. So those funds have been a part of that audit, and then the board has also approved an additional Measure O-Z specific audit. So particularly the outside agencies that receive the funds will have their expenditures reviewed. And again, Measure O cannot be taken by the state, which is something that's really important to the county and important to the community because we've lost a lot of revenue to the state. And it's nice to have that locally controlled funding that the community can give us some input on how to spend. And Measure O will be on your November 6th ballot, and the county will continue to keep you informed about Measure O. All of the reports that we receive from the outside agencies are on our county website. We issue press releases constantly about Measure O or Measure Z. And we also have all kinds of budget information on our website if anybody wanted to drill down on a Measure Z or Measure O budget, because all of those funds have been separated out. And I kind of assume most of you are all registered to vote, but if not, we have some information on where to go, although I do think there may be some under 18 people in here. Anyway, so if you have questions, we are happy to answer them.
What is the percent tax?
It's a half cent.
What's been the annual revenue from Measure Z?
So it's
Expected revenue from O?
So it's $11.58 million for fiscal year 18-19. It's a significant source of revenue to our community.
So we're paying half a penny per every dollar,
Yes,
and we generate $11 million.
yes.
And you're not, by law, allowed to say vote for it, so I'll say vote for it. And,
Bingo!
and I, you know, I grew up in the middle of the sticks, and I can tell you back in the day, my dad was a Miranda volunteer fire, and you know, back then you had to call Miranda Gardens if you had a fire, and you know, they had an old coat and a pair of gloves and some boots. And fortunately, the firehouse shed, which was right behind my house, was on a hill. So if the truck didn't start, they could jump, they could pop the clutch down the hill to get it going. And you know, I work some with some rural fire departments, and you know, I mean, these people just run out, and so the ability to buy equipment, you know, I think some of them got some air gear, some of them got turnouts, you know, get their trucks worked on. I mean, that's important stuff there. There's been one argument I've heard where, oh, well, the cities aren't getting their proportionate share, and I would respond, again, through personal experience, but this also happens to be true, which is nice, is that, you know, a lot of the sales tax generated within the cities is coming from people in the rural areas. In other words, you know, you're buying a car, or you're buying something else. If you're in Garberville, Redway, Willow Creek, you're buying it in Eureka, or I guess Arcata didn't really have car dealers anymore, but or McKinleyville. So that argument you may hear out there, I think is kind of specious. It's just because they get all the revenue from the being retail centers. So they can't say it, but I'll say it, vote for it.
And just to piggyback a little bit on what Greg said, the county provides services to all residents, like health and human services, whether it's child welfare, IHSS, those go across district boundaries. So that's in all of the cities, that's in the, you know, southern Humboldt that is not incorporated. So district attorney services, we by law have to provide services for the defense of folks accused of a crime, and so the county provides services just across the board. And those fire departments have had to also receive used fire trucks, surplus fire trucks from the federal government for the Forest Service, and so now, you know, some of those fire trucks are 20, 30 years old, and so at this point they can buy some new equipment, and that's been really great for them.
And they're definitely doing that.
Yes.
So, yes, it's huge improvements.
Yes.
The only other thing I've heard people complain about with Z is that it wasn't audited.
Yeah, so the county by law has to pay for an external audit every year, and so we have an external auditor. We have a contract with Clifton Larson Allen, and they come in and they audit the county. And so those funds are reviewed every year. And the board has heard the community, and now they have done, we've just recently executed another contract with Clifton Larson Allen to just look at Measure Z funds. And in particular, that will mean that the outside agencies will have their expenditures reviewed more diligently, because those county expenditures have seen scrutiny. And our auditor-elect, and her and I joke about this, she would never pay a bill that she didn't approve of. So she's very diligent about making sure that all county expenditures are appropriate.
Well, any further questions? Are you going to be able to be here for a few minutes after? If
Sure.
has additional questions, they'll be able to come up. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.